Obligatory hyped up youngsters try. Just look at him go. That's Rugby.
Well, he's got all the potential to be, doesn't he?
Hello and welcome to another stressful week of building up to a gigantic test match. It used to be that all these stressful build-ups would only be in the Tri Nations and the end of year tour would be for nice relaxing beatdowns.
Not one more, please.
But now everybody wants to rip our heads off. What did we do to you? Anyways, there were some November internationals played this past weekend to kick off the whole series, even though it was October. So let's go through all of those so you have your talking points when you're in that teams meeting waiting lobby. I've always kind of enjoyed an England versus Australia test match. It's like seeing Murdoch and Corden get into a fist fight and then hoping they both lose. Recently I have been rooting against the Corden card and it was no different this past weekend. Now I couldn't watch the game very closely because I was in a jacuzzi, believe it or not, but it does seem like England are still following the data-driven rugby game plan. Sniping running number 9 Alex Mitchell was kicking the ever-loving shit out of it as per instructions. But beyond that, Faye Waboso and Ben Earl still looked like a couple of guns and Henry Pollock was still playing in the prickest way possible, which I fully endorse. Australia didn't really fire a shot. They only got 7 points off an intercept right on their try line and nothing else really happened, so it doesn't really make for very good reading. Both teams though have much easier games this coming weekend, with England playing Fiji and the Australians playing against Italy. But you know, like I said above, these days everybody wants to rip your head off. There was another game happening at the same time in London, but it wasn't falling under the much hyped Quilter Nations Series for some reason, at least on their website. No one was there. The Boks were playing against Japan and they brought in as many as 6 Japanese speakers.
難しいですよ。すごい難しいです。多分頑張りますね。
While Japan brought only like 1 Safa, which was a mistake. Add in some terrible weather that was making running rugby almost impossible and Japan were already 2 steps behind. The Boks power game was getting them very easy entries into the Japan 22 and that was all the invitation the head boy needed. Scores were climbing very fast and soon the Boks were running away with it. No repeats of 2015 this time, and unless there are some major shifts in world rugby powers, I don't think there will be a repeat of that ever again. So maybe next time we can downplay the whole Brighton Ghosts expulsion thing, okay? I think we have been exercised. Next up for Japan, they face Ireland, who have their own ghosts to dispel over Japan. So maybe that thing can be played up. I don't know. I don't think they've played them since then. And the Boks, they've just got this little France thing coming up. The final big game of the weekend was yet another throwback to the Pokemon Go era with all kinds of ghosts that need to be expelled or whatever. Ireland were taking on New Zealand at Soldier Field in Chicago to commemorate that one game that announced their arrival at the big boy table of World Rugby. Sadly, the 2025 version of that game did not contain the juice. The ref was maybe a little pedantic and whistle happy, but he had to be because both teams were playing like shit. There were knock-ons and penalties and missed crossfield kicks and it just wasn't very good. Nothing like the accuracy and beauty these two teams have played the last 2 times they met. Now I read that there is a possible reason for the Irish players not being so up to speed, being that they only had 111 minutes per player on average for this season so far. That average probably dropped down to 12 minutes per player after Tyke Byrne got sent off for that screen check on Beauden Barrett. That might be one reason. And another reason in my books is that they are a bit of a slow team. James Lowe, Stuart McCloskey, and held together by tape Gary Ringrose are not exactly speed demons, and they're not going to be bothering guys like Cam Roygard, D-Mac or Will Jordan. Once the game wore on a bit, the All Blacks could bring on guys like Wallace Atiti and aforementioned D-Mac, while the Irish had to use spring chicken Ian Henderson and physical beast Sam Prendergast to try and stop the tide. And slightly slow players became way too slow players on defense. Maybe I'm being a little harsh. It's not like the All Blacks absolutely smashed Ireland, but the game was quite a letdown, especially since I had to stay up to midnight to watch it, and that left me cranky. No. there were other international games on the weekend as well. Scotland padded their stats by beating the USA 80-something to zip, which is not cool when you know the USA are hosting the World Cup in 2021. Hope there's improvement soon, boys. Elsewhere in London as well, I think the Barbarians were playing the All Blacks 15, but they were suffering from a hangover, so they were dropping the ball and the All Blacks guys were picking it up on the way to a simple win. And finally, Munster were playing the Argentine 15 and they won, which means they have now beaten a kind of a team from every one of the major Southern Hemisphere nations. No doubt that XV will fall away from the end of the Argentine name in future times, and Munster will say they beat all the Southern Hemisphere teams fair and square. Congratulations. Now, games coming this weekend. As I mentioned earlier, Ireland will be taking on Japan to dispel demons maybe, I don't know. The Wallabies will be taking on Italy, which they should watch out for, and England will be facing Fiji, which should be okay for them. Another game will be happening. Scotland, they will be hosting the All Blacks at Fortress Murrayfield. Will Scotland be able to break the All Blacks winning streak at Murrayfield? I think it's 19 games by now. My gut says no. And then lastly, the big stressful one. The Springboks playing in Paris against a France side who have been stewing in hate and pain since 2023. Don't listen to anyone saying there is no revenge talked about. There is definitely revenge on the cards. My condolences to Angus Gardner, who has been appointed as the referee for this match. No matter what he does, next week he'll either be getting cursed in beautiful lilting French or in sharp bombastic Afrikaans. There will be no middle ground. I'm sorry. Luckily for my whole filming thing today, the Boks have not announced their team and I think it's been postponed to Thursday, which is only something they do when there's someone with a niggle in the team or if it's a really big match. And this is a really big match. As always, but even more so in this game, I think whoever wins will be determined by the big fat boys up front. Those 8 heroes. France have been enjoying using the 6-2 and the 7-1 bench split in the last few months, and they set up a whole bunch of mauls during the game to try and take everything out of your legs. Only thing is, they are coming up against the side who kind of invented this tactic. What do you do when you're France and the Springboks can just replace the same bunch of forwards you can at 45 minutes? That should be very interesting. But the Boks, they have problems of their own. They like to mess it up in the 22, and if you turn over the ball to the French and they kick it long down the field, Louis Bielbarré will just run and get the ball and score. Will Damien Willemse or Cheslin Colby be fast enough to catch him? I don't know. These are the types of thoughts that are going to keep me up this week until I'm a ball of stress on Saturday and unable to function with my family and stuff. These are the types of games we live for. The kids are getting rowdy, so let's do the news. And the only news really is that everyone in green is upset about a red card again. This time everyone is in emerald green and it's the Irish about Tyke Byrne, who got sent off for that little check on Beauden Barrett over the weekend. Barrett, though, has said he doesn't think it's a red card and he's put himself at Tyke Byrne's disposal in his defense to try and get the red card turned over. What a change it is from last week and the week before, eh? Now, if it wasn't a 20-minute red card but a full red card, would the TMO have upgraded it? Who knows? At least it didn't ruin the game. In fact, Ireland played better when they were down to 14. But maybe it made them tired in the end and that's why New Zealand won. Who knows? You never know these things. What I do know is that is the end of this week's rugby update. I will see you all next week as not just a floating head with my shirt matching the background, and then we can all be angry at Angus Gardner together. Or worship him for the rest of our days. Bye.